Before we get the show started, big announcement. EarthX 2025 tickets are now live. Join 4,000 other attendees, including prime ministers, ambassadors, UN associates, Fortune 500 CEOs, media personalities, all for 4 days of an amazing conference with panels, speakers, presentations, breakout rooms, calls to action, networking. Basically, I went there this past year and it was one of the best events I've ever been to. We will be hosting one full day of the event with a focus on the future of sustainability in business. If you're interested in speaking or sponsoring, contact me, Dylan Welch here. Still have a few speaking spots available. If you're not and you just want to attend and meet amazing people, get inspired, be sure to register today. Anyway, let's get this show started. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Green Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Welch. For those of you who have listened to my podcast or just, read our articles on green.org, my favorite thing to do is talk to people who have a really interesting, diverse background, whether it's sports or explorers or adventurers or scientists or researchers, and then they take that and apply it to something new. And then they create, a new business, or they launch a new research expedition or something like that. And I think those people, to me, are some of the most interesting people on the planet because they just have a diverse background. They're doing cool things. They're working on different parts of themselves. And so our guest today is a perfect example of that. Former professional NHL player turned president of Filium Corp, Doug Lynch. Doug, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Dylan. Yeah, I'm excited to chat.
So we'll talk about Filium a little bit, but former professional NHL player. I think you're the first NHL player we've had on the podcast in about 200 episodes. So that's exciting. Tell us a little bit about, your background and, your kind of rise and, work to get to the NHL and what that was like.
Yeah, no, thank you. And just full disclosure, I played 2 games, so I was there for a little bit.
That counts.
It counts. And I got to say, Dylan, I had 2 wins. I'm undefeated.
Yeah, there we go.
League was too easy for me.
Wayne Gretzky isn't even undefeated. So that's
I played 2 games, I got 2 wins, and I got out of there. But no, I grew up in Vancouver, BC, Canada. Left home at 16, played in the Western Hockey League, which is the highest junior, kind of in North America, in Canada anyway. And then from there, drafted Edmonton Oilers as an 18-year-old. Played 2 more years in the major junior for the Red Deer Rebels. In fact, we just had our reunion last month, but the team I played for won the Memorial Cup, which is a big deal for major junior hockey. And so fun seeing those guys after, 15, 20 years. From there, I went to the Edmonton Oilers, was up and down in the minors, played a couple games, like I mentioned, for Edmonton, spent most of my time in the minors, and was traded in the Chris Pronger trade. And back then, Chris was the best player in the NHL, arguably best defenseman for sure. So kind of a big deal. So my name gets kind of recognized because of how important Chris was to the game. And then spent 2 years in the minors for the St. Louis Blues, and then spent 8 years in Europe. So I think overall it was, if you count major juniors, 14 years, 11 cities, 4 countries, and just over 1,000 games and combined. So my teeth are fake. We haven't had a chance to meet in person. I got a bunch of stitches in my face, and body's feeling pretty good these days. But yeah, it was a really fun 14-year ride.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are there any certain memories or experiences that stand out to you as, some of your highlights from your hockey days?
Absolutely. So I was really fortunate. I won 7 championships during my career, and a lot of players play in many sports and don't win any championships. So I was really, really fortunate to be part of some really great organizations. I'm, referenced winning the Memorial Cup in Red Deer. One of my biggest highlights was I actually played in the same game with 3 of my younger brothers. We're the only family in hockey history to have 4 brothers in the same game at the same time. We beat a couple players, families had three brothers in the same game. So for me and my brothers set a professional hockey record. We're all 1 year apart. We all played for the Spokane Chiefs for 1 game. That was very, very special. But then, of course, playing my first NHL game, winning multiple championships in Europe. You make friends for life, business relationships for life when you're part of a winning culture. So really excited that I was a part of that. So definitely playing with my brothers, playing my first NHL game, and then winning those championships were the highlights of my career.
Damn, that's amazing. That's a serious accomplishment, not only for you, but for your entire family, really. Like that's amazing. You say, kind of like building those relationships and those bonds, and what better to do it with, well, three of your brothers. I'm sure that must have been an awesome moment, and it'll probably stand the test of time for a pretty long time in the record books. That's not something that's just going to kind of get broken tomorrow. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. Yeah, we didn't take it for granted at the time. We knew it was pretty special what was happening. And I can send you after the podcast. Maybe you want to post it, but we have a picture of all four of us on the ice with the jerseys, with the anthem going on. So it's a pretty special moment for my family. But yeah, there's the four of us. We all went on to play. I had the longest pro career, but all my other brothers had very successful careers, 4 or 5 years in the Western Hockey League. Another one was drafted to the Colorado Avalanche. My other brother went to Detroit Red Wings on a tryout, and then all of them went and played UBC, Canadian CIS hockey in the University of British Columbia. So another 5 years. So all of them played really well, had really great careers, and then two of them now are firemen in Vancouver, and one has a distribution company that my family started.
Nice. Yeah, glad to hear, not only the successful hockey career with everybody, but the transition too. And that was actually something I wanted to talk to you about. Because before this, again, we'll get to Filium and the business that you're running, which is really cool. But you're kind of talking about, back in like the 90s, the sort of sports and pop culture was very different than it is now. And maybe that's just through social media, means of communication. But back then it was like, bling bling, ball out, you get the fancy cars, you're on MTV Cribs. And, now it's kind of common knowledge that a lot of athletes went broke back in the day. Whereas now there's so many opportunities. And what you mentioned too is like building business relationships, building brands that can translate into past your successful professional career. So what has that been like, sort of transitioning, from the professional NHL player into the business world? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, no, of course. And yes, I think one of the main things that's happened is financial literacy, and not just financial literacy, but all literacy. Like there's so much more information now available to all of us, the whole world, with the cell phones, the internet, right just in our pocket. And I remember going through that whole transition where you had such small communities back then, and you didn't, whatever your friends were doing, you were doing as well. And you never, sometimes if you didn't you be a part of a group with some strong role models, you didn't quite know and have that information. And I think that knowing now that when you're an athlete at those levels, you have access to these people, owners of teams, major sponsors, CEOs that are, we guys are making $5-10 million a year back when I played, which is huge money. But then you meet the CEO of Coke or Pepsi, they're making 30 million a year. Like, so you end up being around people like this, and you kind of think it's normal because that's what your life is like. And then starting to realize, like, man, like when I'm done playing, like I'm not sitting in boardrooms or golfing or going to conferences with this level of brain of a person running this type of company. So I think what started happening, I know near the end of my career, is we started having these financial literacy coaches, some business executives coming in saying, your brand, your individual brand is never as high as when you're playing at that level. You've got, in the NHL, 20,000 people watching you. I know with pro baseball, pro football, it could be 60 to 80,000 people watching you. You're at the height. Everywhere you go, you're getting recognized. So doors will open up easier for players during that time. But Dylan, we all know that the day that you can't perform on the field, on the court, on the ice, like those teams don't care about you. They care about their team. And if you can plug into that team and have success, guess what? They'll open the red carpet to you. They'll pay you the money, whatever that takes. But the day that those lights turn off and you're now at home with your family and you're not getting the accolades, you're not getting the maybe recognition, it's a lot harder for some of those doors to open. So I think now players are realizing, and athletes, that at the height of your fame or at the height of your career, now's the time to start building those relationships post-playing career. And maybe someone like myself that, I had a decent career, but I wasn't a superstar. I didn't play 20 years in the NHL. I knew I wasn't going to retire with the type of financial freedom that other players would. So I was very conscious of that early on, saying, man, I want to meet as many people as possible, build these relationships, because at the end of the day, when I retire, those are the people that can become mentors. They can open doors for business opportunities for the next, so and so called life after your playing career. So I think that's really changed, as well as these players are recognizing that their brand is important and valuable. And when you can leverage the team you're playing on, which these teams are billions upon billions of dollars of net worth, the people they're surrounding themselves with, if they can kind of almost piggyback off of those brands to elevate your personal brand. And that's what the NFL players, NBA players, Major League Baseball players, in my opinion, have done a way better job than some of the hockey players, because we're a little bit more stifled in, like, you got to give 110%. No one's bigger than the team, which is all correct. But it's kind of stifles some individual personalities, in my opinion. And so I think some of the NHL players now are doing a way better job on building their own brands, because when they get fired one day or they blow out their knee and their career is done, they actually have a brand that they can now lean back on.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think, we live in such a digital world. We're always on our phones. We're having this call through Zoom, halfway across the country. And there's pros and cons to that. But one of the pros is that, as you mentioned, we have way more access to information, So maybe back in the 90s, that, just the circle people were in, that was what they were kind of, following. Now people can see, oh wow, like, yeah, I'm in the NHL, but I'm seeing this NBA player build this billion-dollar brand. So I'm going to kind of follow in those footsteps and just
Totally.
sort of seeing, what's been successful, what hasn't. So yeah, it is really, really interesting that we're able to do that. And, for all the cons of, constantly being connected, it is cool kind of scaling it back a little bit and seeing how that has sort of educated and helped people in in a good way, because athletes are hardworking people. They have to be to get to that level. So if they have the knowledge and the tools to translate that over into the business world, it could be really valuable to them. And kind of going on what you've done, which is really awesome and kind of follows in what we like to highlight on green.org, is not only have you been building this amazing company, but it also, does good things in an industry where there's tons and tons of waste. So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about Filium Corp. So tell us, tell us what Filium Corp is for the audience that isn't familiar, and tell us, where the journey started to kind of build this brand and build this company.
Course, yeah. So Filium Corp is headquartered in Seattle, Washington, and we're a material science company. And basically, our technology can be applied to any material. We prefer to stick with the naturals as much as possible, so cotton, wools, linen, silks, models, and different things like that can be organic, that are breathable, that are biodegradable. We can be applied to the polyesters and the synthetics. However, with the microplastic and micro shedding and all the new information coming out, I think a lot of the brands want to start becoming more natural. And it's been tough for a lot of years because you can't wear just a 100% cotton t-shirt as a performance fabric. Now with our technology, you can, without sacrificing softness or breathability, but you're also going to get anti-odor properties, water repellent properties, or stain repellent properties. So being a material science company and coming from the sports world, that's been my focus, is the sports world, because that's what I know. But now recognizing that there's such a big opportunity in workwear, construction, uniforms, scrubs, aprons, any type of that textile. So for us, we're the perfect partner for any brand that wants to be more sustainable and didn't have a solution for the textile piece of their company. So you have a large cell phone company that's clearly not an apparel company, but they have to hand out polos to their workers or their staff. Right now, if those are all synthetic, that's killing the environment. And sometimes those workers might only work for a month or two at that company. Then they fire, they get quit, they get fired or they quit. Now they've got that polo, that synthetic polo that's going to last hundreds of years in the landfill, biodegrade into microplastics, which are being found in every ocean, all inside the human body now for the first time. So just like anything, Dylan, we talk about education, our grandparents grew up with lead-based paint on the walls. And you go back even hundreds of years and people wearing lead on their faces, right? Now the education comes through how terrible that is for our body. Well, now we're just starting to learn how the microplastics are affecting us, how affecting the oceans, everything that we're eating and digesting. So for us, being a solution for any brand that wants to be more sustainable from a textile perspective, we're the perfect partner.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I kind of shared this story when we just talked on our last call. But for those of you who don't know, I'm also a kickboxing and boxing coach. And so I wear a lot of athletic gear. I'm always in the gym, and I bought like a 10 pack of just kind of like generic sleeveless workout shirts off Amazon, and I put one on and I worked out in it, and it just made my entire body like break out in basically hives. It was really disgusting. And so I just immediately had to throw that entire 10 pack away. And I was like, man, that sucks, because like what a waste of, just materials that are ending up in a landfill. And then literally, I think like 2 days later, we connected. And so I think that's really cool what you're doing, kind of thinking long term, really in terms of the next generation and the future of apparel and clothing, and I think probably we'll look back on right now in 20, 30 years and be like, I can't believe how we would buy, 10 packs of shirts on Amazon and wear them once and throw it in the trash. Or we'd work at a company, we'd get a synthetic polo shirt, and then we'd quit 2 weeks later. And who knows where, all those shirts end up. So I think, it is important that we do kind of get back to that. Hey, let's create something that lasts a long time, that, you don't have to wash it every single time. And actually, that goes back to we had Hap Klopp, who was one of the founders and 20 years CEO of North Face, on the
Mm.
podcast. And when he started North Face, it was very similar. It was like, why would you create a good quality product? You want someone to wear it a few times and then they throw it out and then they come back and buy more. And Hap was like, no, no, no. Like, we need to create good stuff. And then because of that, they have built a $4 billion business, and they're one of the most famous brands on the planet, known for their durability. So I
Well,
think that's
and
really, sorry, go ahead. I just think that's a
yeah,
really amazing, like, goal and vision to have for your business.
yeah, absolutely. When you can marry like purpose and passion, and that's what my partner Raj always says, which I love, is like that's the ultimate. And you said, Dylan, you earlier like what got me into this, and it's at the end of the day, I'm so fortunate because like I worked hard as a pro hockey player for 14 years, but like I never looked at it as like a job. Like, yes, it was my job. I had to I wear the certain thing at the certain event, wearing this, your body fat needed to be this for training camp. Like, of course, you had metrics you had to attain, but I never looked at it as a job. And when I retired, I really wanted to selfishly continue into a career that I was passionate about, because when you're passionate about it, I like I'll be up until 10 o'clock at night reading articles or watching YouTube videos, or educating myself on microshedding, microplastics, synthetics, not cottons, whatever it is, because I love it. I'm passionate about it. So when you can kind of marry what you're passionate about. So for me, I wake up every day and I want to be part of the solution. I want to be a part. I want to say that I've done my best. And like whether it's just like not buying plastic water bottles, it's something as simple as that. And like, how can I recycle every day? And I know that there's all the, like for me, I struggle because I'm a pescatarian. So I had sometimes have fish 5 nights a week. Well, dude, there's so much mercury in fish and the microplastics, and I don't want to support overfishing. But I haven't eaten meat for a few years now, and so it's like I struggle like with what the right thing to do is every day. And so for me, it's if like I wake up and do what I think is best for not just myself and my company, but for the planet. You start kind of marry that purpose and passion, and it feels good to be a part of something that you believe in.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of something we talk about a lot, is where, no one's perfect. No one can live like the ultimate sustainable lifestyle. Unfortunately, that's just how it is in modern world. But if you can at least take those little steps, to be more sustainable, and then, to the next level, if you're able to, and that's really what green.org is all about, is those business people, entrepreneurs like yourselves who, take a big risk, invest in themselves, and have this vision, and not only, create a business, which, one, it's hard enough to create a successful business as it is, but then to also have, the sort of that passion to do it in an eco-friendly way. I think really, as like a human, that's where you find the most happiness and fulfilledness in your life, is, you're able to build a business, build something, the American dream. You're able to provide for your family and your friends and put food in your fridge and, a roof over your head. And on top of that, be able to do something positive for the planet is really like the trifecta of personal happiness and hitting the gym, being really healthy.
Yeah,
That's it
maybe
right
doing some
there.
kickboxing.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I just wanted to say, thank you for kind of having that vision from the start of, one, like that transition out of, an NHL career into the business world, being able to build something successful, but also, doing something that has a positive impact. I think that's really admirable. So I want to say thank you, for one, being here, but two, that vision. And, I'm really excited to kind of continue to watch where your career takes you, where Filium goes, where, do you have kind of like a next plan, 5-10 year vision for where you'd like to take Filium?
Yes, of course. And we've got our projections and all the different things. So for us being kind of that material science company, and we originally started a few brands. Zenkai, which you're wearing, is one of them. We have a golf brand called Parex. We've got an athleisure brand called Ably. That we just try to basically show the world what's possible with natural materials powered by Filium. And for us now transitioning from, okay, concept brands, what we can do, now let's go and build partnerships with the biggest brands in the world. And how can we really help the textile industry, which is the second largest polluter on the planet? So for us, the next 5 years is like actually, as of I think a couple of days is our 1 year anniversary of starting Filium Corp, which is exciting. We survived
Congrats.
1 year
Yeah,
as a
nice.
startup. Is going to sign some of our big clients, which we have three that we're going to be announcing here in 2025. Our supply chain's almost fully booked for 2025. We're now starting to book for 2026. And working in, again, multiple industries. And one of my goals with my investors, and I shared with us on our quarterly review, was how do we activate different industries? So,
Mhm.
we have the performance industry with the Nikes, Adidas, the Lululemon. So like, let's go work with those partners, but let's also work with the culinary departments. Let's go work with the constructions, the first responders. We're getting a ton
Mhm.
of positive responses from all the first responders because they cannot wear synthetics underneath their uniforms
Mhm.
because some people don't know this. I didn't, my two little brother are firemen. Is synthetics burn to your skin where natural materials burn away from your skin.
Mhm.
So like police departments, military, fire, emergency response teams have all taken to our technology. So that's been one of our biggest areas of growth. So for us, activating different industries, validating the business model, validating our solution and our tech. That's the next kind of basically 2 to 3 years. And if we're successful at doing that, then now brands start calling us and we can mitigate a lot of people's risk, a lot of the biggest brands risk, because now you can bring more natural materials into your supply chain, which until our technology, you couldn't do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love that your vision isn't you have the brand, the clothing brand yourselves, but you're not just we're just going to build this one brand and sell. It's like we want to work with every single person and company and organization and industry that needs this, which is basically everybody. And I like the vision, of starting with like first responders, police officers, because I know they're sweaty. They're basically getting a workout every day. They go in
Yep.
and are working on the job. So that's awesome. Well, Doug, thank you so much for being here. Yeah, I am wearing one of your shirts. I do love them.
Let's
Also,
go.
I didn't want to say that just because I didn't want this is not sponsored in any
What he
way,
looks
just
extra
for the
sexy
record.
today. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
You look extra good today. I
And I
wonder.
taught a kickboxing workout the other day wearing it and got some compliments. So
Nice.
yeah, firsthand I can say, great stuff. I got the shirt, the shorts, I rocked them. They're
Cool.
great. So good quality stuff. This is not sponsored in any way, just giving a nice shout out to what you're doing. And yeah, Doug, thanks for taking some time out of your day for being here. I think, what you're doing is awesome. I think this is a great episode. I think people will really enjoy it. And hopefully, we'll stay in touch. We'd love to have you back on the show. And hopefully, we'll
Excellent.
just kind of keep crossing paths and supporting each other however we can. And for everyone listening, be sure to, check Doug out. We'll link Filium's website in the podcast content information. So support them any way they can, spread the word, and let's all, build our businesses, make some money, live successfully, and give back to the planet any way we can. So, Doug, again, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dylan. Appreciate you. Thank
And to
you.
everyone listening, our goal is to bring you people just like Doug, successful, interesting entrepreneurs, business owners, explorers, scientists, inventors, people doing cool, positive things for the planet. So we appreciate you supporting the show. We'll see you on the next episode of the Green Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning into the episode. My name is Dylan Welch. Appreciate it. As always, stay up to date with the latest information on green.org and dylanwelch.com. Dylan Welch Media is a full-service media and communications agency dedicated to promoting, marketing, and helping businesses in clean tech, renewable energy, and sustainability grow, get more clients, get more customers, get in front of their ideal clientele. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out. If you're interested in joining the Green Summit, go to www.green-summit.org. Reserve your ticket today. There's very few spots left, so make sure you get on that ASAP. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.